All right, the rip and stitch. This is probably one of my favorite topics in this entire presentation. A lot of times with geometry and imported models, you're going to get geometry that's bad, due to translation if it's coming from an IGES or from a Parasolid or what have you. Sometimes you'll just get degenerate surfaces. So I'm going to do a couple of these types of examples where I want to actually fix up the geometry. Now this one here, I'm actually going to have a part, and I'm going to show you how we can rectify this type of a filleting situation based on our rip and stitch techniques with surfacing. So to come back over here, I got a starter file for this one actually. We'll go file open on this one. Rip and stitch cube. And we call it rip and stitch because literally, as I come in here and do this fillet, talk through it here, you're ripping out faces. You're literally going to be deleting faces to then put in new ones, just like a tailor would put, a patch on a shirt or a pair of jeans if you got a hole in the knee or something to that nature. Okay, and in order to put the patch in, sometimes you need some good surfaces, to work with, or some good material or fabric. Okay, so what I'm going to do is each one of these faces here, I want to come in and delete them, but if you notice with this face here, it would leave that triangle edge. And what you want to do as you rip and stitch is you want to make your success rate as high as possible by simplifying the geometry in those areas as much as possible. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a spline on surface on each one of these guys right here to cut off that little triangle on the end to give myself a nice squared off area to work with. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go to Sketch, and then 3D Sketch. Okay, and I'm going to bump my S key. I've customized my shortcut toolbar to where I have spline on surface in my sketch toolbar, which I seem to use a lot. So keep in mind that is fully customizable. And I'm just going to come to each one of these corners here, and I'm going to float over the surface that I want it on, strategically by the way, and then float down here to this other point, hit Escape to get on my point tool. Sometimes it's really easy to miss the points, and you might end up with a blue line, and if that's the case, you just kind of click and drag the endpoints of your curve there to get them to relate to where you want them to be. And so far we're pretty successful in not getting any underdefined blue geometry. You have to just be strategic with where you click and place your lines here. Okay, so with that sketch now, and I'm still in my active sketch, you can see up here in the upper right hand corner I'm in my confirmation corner for my sketch, so I know I'm still in my sketch. And what I'll do is I'll come up and I'll go to my features toolbar. Straight away we'll go to curves and then split line. Okay, so utilizing the split line command, and what I'm going to do is over here on the left hand side, it wants to know what faces or bodies you'd like to split. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click each one of the edges that I want to split with those curves that I selected, that I sketched. Okay, and in doing this, it gives me extra faces in here, which I can then come in here and delete. So we'll go back up here to our surfaces toolbar and the delete face command. Okay, and I'm going to delete each one of these faces in this corner. Okay, and that leaves me with this hole here. Now, again, the reason we cut this, right, and we ripped it the way that we did was so that we could get, really good geometry in here that we could work with. Because at this point now I want to use the fill surface command. Okay? And you need a good boundary, a good clean boundary in order to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick each one of these boundaries here. Okay? And utilize this fill surface command. You'll notice that these are open edges because our part now is hollow now that we've ripped it. Okay, and it's just a surface body. So as I come in here and I use the fill command, you can see what that fill is doing for us. Okay. Right now, and it's important to come up here and understand what it's talking about here in the patch boundary. Right now, the way that the software is solving for that fill surface that you see the preview for is it's using all those edges as a contact. Okay. Now, you can come down here within your property manager and you can specify things like curvature or tangency. And it all depends on what type of geometry you're looking for. If you're designing, you know, an iPhone or something that's really supposed to be aesthetically pleasing like that, you're going to want to match curvature. Okay. Or if you're designing tooling, maybe you just want to, you know, have a tangency in there. All right. Kind of all depends. And then the way that the software solves for that fill surface is going to be a little bit different. The curvature is going to give you a smoother, more, you know, aesthetically pleasing type of a patch in there. So we'll just go ahead and say OK here. And there's our patch. Now, you're not done at this point, because if you notice up here in my design tree, I still have two surface bodies, right? If I expand this, I've got the initial surface, and then I've got the filled surface. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and use my knit command. I'm going to pick those two surface bodies. Okay? I'm going to come back over here to my property manager, and I'm going to turn off gap control. Okay? And turn on try to form a solid. Now, the reason why I turn off the gap control is because I know that when I put that patch in there, that I put that patch in there and it was contacting all of those edges. The best time for you to use gap control is when you bring in an imported model and you know you have multiple surface bodies. Okay? You know that you have issues. You know you have faces that don't quite meet up due to the translation as it came over into SolidWorks. And so when you go to try to knit surfaces that way, you can turn on the gap control and say, okay, anything that has a gap that is 0.5 millimeters, let's go ahead and knit that together. And then the software can kind of sew it up for you and kind of bring the surfaces up tight. So that's really what the gap control is for. It's a little bit more for, you know, importing geometry that way, rather than knitting something that you know knits up nice because you've created that patch yourself. So there's our knit surface command, and because we chose to form a solid, because it was a watertight and we put that patch in ourselves there, we have a nice solid body. Okay. So going back to our PowerPoint presentation here, until you get to something like that.